शेयर करता हूँ मतलब
ठीक है, डाउट उठ रहेगा मेरे को बता दे.
या
Okay, fine. So let's start with the next topic. Recording. Now we need to understand the Microsoft core services. What are the core services? Okay, for Azure. Very important, huh? Okay, so so these are the core services: Azure Region, Availability Zone, Availability Set, Azure Region Pair, Azure Geo Redundant Storage, Local Redundant Storage, Zonal Redundant Storage, Geo Zone Redundant Storage. So confusing, lot of confusing are there. GRS, LRS, then again ZRS. So this is the ZRS, huh? LRS thing, and ZRS. So जब मैं समझाऊंगा, when I will teach you, you will able to understand what is this exactly. Then Azure architecture will understand the Azure architecture, Azure resource managers, resource group, and then Prosimetry placement group. So these all are the
And recording
core.
started.
Recording started. These all are the core services of the Azure region. Azure service, Microsoft Azure. Recording is already started. So we'll go through this all the Azure core services one by one. So first, Azure region. So what is the Azure region? So in order to provide the Azure services to people around the world, Microsoft has created the boundaries called geographics. Geographic boundary is the border of the country, and there is a good reason for that. For creating the border of the country, there is a good reason for that. What is the reason for creating the boundaries? There are regulations for the data handling that apply to entire countries and having geographic defined for country allow Microsoft to ensure that the data handling regulation are in place. So basically, why the Azure region is required? To have the Azure region, Microsoft created the geographics. Geographic is representing the country's boundary. So if the customer is using the Microsoft Azure and there's a data regulations issues from the government that you can put your data within your countries, okay, not from other countries, not to other countries. That purpose, geographic region is created. Okay, so many companies, especially ones that deal with the sensitive data, also much more comfortable if their data is contained within the country which in which they operate. Okay, so it is related to your data privacy. To have the data privacy, Microsoft introduced the geographics. Within the geographics, we have the Azure region. So what are the geographics?
Hi, sir.
Uh, so within the geographics, we have the Azure region. So there are number of geographics in Azure, like for example, United States, Canada, UK, Asia, China. Okay, so these all are the geographic region. Within the region, these are the geographics. Okay, so within the geographics, we have two or more regions. At least we have two or more regions. Each of region are the 100 miles distance between two regions. There is 100 miles of distance. So we have the geographics. Geographic represent the countries. Within the geographics, we have the region, multiple regions. Within the geographics, the distance between two regions is 100 miles. That is the blueprint from the Microsoft Azure. Example, within the United States geographics, there are many regions, including central US region. So we have the central US region in UA, and then east US region in Virginia, and then west US region in California, and then south central US region in the Texas. Okay, so these are the US regions for United States geographics. Similarly, like for Asia, we have a geographic region South India, North India, something kind of. Okay, so Microsoft also operate isolated region that are completely dedicated to government data due to the additional regulations that government data requires. Okay, so there's a dedicated, region is there, dedicated region for the government. Okay, for storing the government data. So we call a dedicated, region for the government. Okay, so those only used by the government. Like for US government want to put their data on Azure, then there is a another separate dedicated region for US government. For private company, they can put their data. They cannot put their data in the government dedicated region. Okay, they can have their data on public uh, Azure region. That is central US region, east US region, west US region, like this. So each geographic contain at least two regions separated by the large physical distance. Okay, so to have the two different regions, having two different region within the geographics will, you know, will provide you the disaster recovery. Okay, if you have two region within the geographics, within that geographics, that means you can configure the disaster recovery site as well, DR site. Okay, so to have the DR site, your data should be in the primary and the secondary data center should be on the same geographics. Okay, so in each geographics you will be having at least two regions. One region you can have for primary data centers, primary region, primary data center, you can say that, and then another region you can use for your data centers, primary and then secondary data center, like this for the disaster recovery systems. Okay, like this. Each region Microsoft has a build a data center. So what is the region? It is a data centers. It is a physical buildings. Okay, that contain the physical hardware that Azure uses. Okay, so basically you have the geographics. Geographic represent the countries. Within the geographics, you have multiple Azure region. Okay, within the region, you have the data center, physical data centers. Okay, like this. Clear this one, this concept? Any questions?
Yes.
No questions, Abdul.
Okay. When customer is creating the Azure resources, only region is visible, not the geographics. Geographic is the just a concept. That is the internal implementation of the Azure. So while creating your resource, you select a region. In which region you want to create the resource? Like you are creating VMs. You want VM. Now you are creating the VMs. So while creating the VMs, you have to define in which region you want to create the VMs, like this. Okay, so VM is region is visible, but geographic is not visible. to ensure that data in the Azure is safe from the disaster and then failure due to the possible problem in a particular region. Customers are encouraged to replicate data into the multiple regions. So within the geographics, we have the multiple regions. If customer want the disaster recovery, disaster site, then customer has to replicate their data into the multiple region, at least more than one region. One region can have Azure Central, like Central US region, they can have as a primary region, and another is the some other region, South or Central US something. You can have the disaster, secondary, Azure region we can have. Okay, if you want disaster recovery, DR site. Okay, region is a set of data centers. Region is the set of data centers deploy with latency. Deploy within the latency defined parameters and the connected to the dedicated regional low latency network. So basically, region is a set of data centers. These data centers are connected to each other with low network latency. Okay, so you won't see any issues, network issues, if you're operating, uh, within the region. Uh, if your data or your resources are distributed onto multiple data centers. Okay, so for example, you have your one pass in one data center and then second primary application on another data centers. Okay, so you won't see any latency. There won't be any network latency. So all the regions are connected to the data centers, and each and every data centers are connected to the low latency network. Okay, Azure region has at least 3 availability zone. Okay, so what is availability zone? We'll see now. So Azure region has at least 3 availability zone. Not all regions support availability zone. If region support availability zone, at least 3 or more availability zone will be there in the region. Each availability zone represent one physical data centers. So I said that region is a set of data centers. A region is a set of data centers. Okay. Within the region, we have the availability zone. Okay. So each region has at least 3 availability zone. These 3 availability zone represent the physical data centers. Okay, so this availability zone represent the one physical data centers. One availability zone represent one physical data centers. So all region doesn't support availability zone. Okay. Okay. So but the region has the at least one data centers. If region support the availability zone, that means that that particular region will have more than 3 availability zone, means more than 3 data centers. Okay, you are getting this point?
Yes.
Okay, it's very complicated, huh? Complexities are there. So just remember that we have the geographic represent the countries. Within the geographics, we have the multiple regions. Region represent the data centers. Region has at least one data centers. Region has availability zone. Not all availability zone, not all regions support the availability zone. If the region support the availability zone, then that region should have the 3 availability zone at least. Maximum can have 5. Okay, so this availability zone represent the one physical data centers. If one availability zone is down, then you have the other availability zone. So when you using the availability zone, you deploy your VMs to all three availability zone. Okay, like you're installing S/4HANA systems and you want to use the availability zone for the high availability, then you will deploy your VMs application in all the three availability zone. So if any of the VMs or data center is down, then another availability zone is there. Okay, so you won't see any downtime. So availability zone guarantee the high availability. The SLA for availability zone is 99.99. Okay, we'll see that. So availability zone basically we use if you want your production system should be on HA, high availability. Okay, so it's also depends upon your SLA agreement. What types of SLA you want? We'll see that in details. Fine. So what is the availability zone? Availability zone is a unique physical location within a region. Each zone is made up of one or more data center equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking. Availability zones are available in the Azure region. Not all Azure regions support the availability zone. If Azure region support the availability zone, then you have at least 3 availability zone in the region. There are at least 3 availability zone within each enabled region. Because each availability zone exists within its own data center in that regions. So each and every availability zone have their own separate data centers. Each has a water supply, cooling systems, network, power supply that is isolated from the other zone. By deploying Azure services in 2 or more availability zone, you can achieve the high availability in a situation where there is a problem with in one zone. Okay, if you deploy your services in multiple availability zone, if one zone having the problem, then your resource will be available in another zone. So you can have the HA, high availability. So this is guarantee high availability of your services. Availability zone provide high availability and fault tolerance, but they may not help you with disaster recovery. So availability zone we can use for the high availability. Disaster recovery, for disaster recovery we cannot use the availability zone. We never use. If there is a localized disaster such as fire in a data center one zone, you will benefit from the availability zone because availability zones are located in the same Azure region. Okay, so if you are within the Azure region, we have the multiple Azure availability zone. Okay, in the region we have the availability zone. If one of the availability zone data center is corrupted, then other availability zone are there within the Azure region. Okay, which guarantee high availability. But if your Azure region is not available, complete Azure region is not available, then what is this problem? Then the service is not available. So in that case, you can have the disaster recovery side. You can have the another region within that geographics. Okay, so multiple region. If you configure you replicate your data or VMs or services within multiple Azure region, then it guarantee the disaster recovery. AZ is basically designed to protect data from data center failure within the region. There are two types, there are two categories of services that support availability zone. Zonal service and zonal redundant services. Any questions till now here?
नो सर।
समझ में आ रहा है ना
हाँ हाँ।
शेषाद्री?
Yes.
Okay. Zonal services. So in Azure availability zone, we have the zonal services and zonal redundant services. What is this? This basically is replicating your VMs, your IP address and data in multiple data centers. Okay, so if you have deployed your VMs in multiple Azure region, multiple Azure not region, availability zone AZ, we call AZ. If you deploy your VMs in multiple availability zone, then your data should be replicated, right? Okay, you have the VMs, your VMs is deployed in all the availability zone, but how you will replicate your data, VMs data, network, IP address, okay, and then your application data, then database, how you will replicate? Those will get replicated with these zonal services and then zonal redundant services. Zonal services handle the VMs replications and then zonal redundant services handle your storage replications. Okay, data replications. We'll see that. Zonal services are the services such as virtual machine, managed disk used in virtual machine and then public address used in the virtual machine. Okay, so basically it is a virtual machine. Okay, so zonal services are the services such as virtual machine, managed disk, virtual IP address which is used in the virtual machine. In order to achieve the high availability, you must explicitly deploy zonal services into two or more zone. If you want a high availability of your services, then you have to deploy zonal service. Okay, so you means infra team. Okay, so they if you have the requirement for your high availability for productions in availability zone, then they will deploy zonal service in more than two zone. So you want to HA, then you require at least two zone, not three. Okay, not four, not five, not six. It's only we require two zone to have the high availability for your ACS, ERS or your database. With zonal service, you can create one VM in AZ1 Azure zone availability zone. Sorry, availability zone. One VM in one VM in availability zone 1 AZ1 we called, and then second VM you can create in AZ2. Now VM 1 which is created in AZ1 and then VM2 are there in two different AZ or data center. Sorry, VM1 and then VM2 are there in two different AZ or data centers. If any one of AZ or any of availability zone, that is AZ1 or AZ2 goes down, then VM in another data center is available which provide you the high availability. Okay, so it's guarantee your high availability of your VMs. If your VMs are available, then your services are available, your database are available. Okay, so you have to configure the zonal service to have the high availability for your VM. Okay, what is the zonal redundant services? Zonal redundant services are services such as zone redundant storage and SQL databases. To use availability zone with these services, you specify the option to make them zone redundant when you create them. For storage, the feature is called ZRS, Zone Redundant Storage. For SQL database, there is a option to make database zone redundant. Azure takes care of the rest of your. Okay, I will explain in some other way. Azure takes care of the rest of your you by replicating data automatically into the multiple availability zone. Okay, so to achieve the comprehensive business continuity on Azure built on your application using blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what is the zone redundant services? So zone redundant services basically is used for replicating your data storage data basically. Okay, so you have multiple availability zone. You have deployed your VMs in more than 2 availability zone. For example, you have the HANA database. Okay, you have configured the HANA database HSR in one zone AZ1. You have the primary database HANA in AZ2. You have secondary HANA database. HSR is enabled. Your data is replicating from one location to another location using the HANA replication methods. But what about your storage? Your data is stored on the storage, right? Okay, so those storage, you know, should be replicated to all the availability zone. Okay, so you are using the 2 availability zone for HA, then your storage should be replicated between 2 availability zone. To have your storage on high availability, you have to configure the zone redundant services. If you configure the zone redundant services, then it will guarantee the high availability of your data or application as well. Okay, so that's the reason zone redundant services we configured to replicate the storage between multiple availability zone. Any questions here till now?
No.
Okay. So if you see here, to achieve the comprehensive business continuity on Azure, business continuity means HA and DR. In Azure, build your application architecture using the combination of availability zone with Azure region pair. You can you can synchronously replicate your application and the data using the availability zone, okay, within the Azure region for the high availability, and asynchronously replicate across the Azure region for disaster recovery. So within the availability zone replicating, which guarantee the high availability, okay, between 2 region, replicating the data application between Azure region, which guarantee disaster recovery protections. Okay. So if you see here, availability zone, let me charge my laptop. Just give me 2 minutes. So availability zone. So zonal zone redundant services. So zone redundant services replicate your application and data across availability zone to protect from single point of failure. Okay, basically it replicate your application and data across availability zone to protect single point of failure. With availability zone, Azure offer industry-based 99.99 SLA for your VM. Okay, so your VM uptime guaranteed by Azure is 99.99. So 99.99% your VM will be available if you use the availability zone. Okay. Availability zone in Azure region is a combination of fault domain and update domain. What is fault domain and update domain? I will explain. For example, if you create 3 or more VMs across 3 zones in Azure region, your VMs are effectively distributed across 3 fault domains and 3 update domains. Okay. So fault domains represent the rack within the data centers. Update domains represent the VMs. Okay. So if you create a more than if you create 3 or more VMs across 3 zones in Azure region, your VMs are effectively distributed across 3 fault domains and 3 update domains. Okay, so within the data center, you have 3 fault domains. Means you have 3 racks, and in that 3 racks, all your VMs are deployed automatically. So a lot of things are there in Azure in the backgrounds, infra level. The Azure platforms recognize these distributions across update domains to make sure that VMs in different zones are not scheduled to be updated at the same time. Okay, so what is the reason having update domains? Multiple update domains, deploying the VMs in multiple update domains or and multiple fault domains. For example, Azure is responsible for doing the maintenance of hardware. Okay, doing the maintenance of your hardware. Okay, so Azure will ensure that if you deploy your VMs in availability zone, then Azure will ensure that your uptime should be 99.99%. If Azure is doing the maintenance activity in one of the rack which represent the fault domains, then those fault domain is affected. And we have the multiple fault domains, multiple racks. Our VMs are deployed in multiple racks, multiple fault domains. If one fault domain is not available, then another fault domains are available, right? Other racks are available, which guarantee your availability of the VMs. Okay. Then once the Microsoft done with the maintenance of the fault fault domain rack one, then they schedule another maintenance for another rack like this, and they will ensure that your VMs is available 24/7. Okay. So if you see here availability zone, here you have the Azure region. Okay, within the Azure region, we can have at least 3 availability zone. 1, 2, 3. Each availability zone represent physical data centers. Okay, physical data centers. So this availability zone contain one or more data centers. Connectivity between the availability zones are through the fast fiber networks. Means the network latency is very low. The network connectivity is very good. Okay. Okay, so this is just a look and feel how the availability zones are look like within the Azure region. Any questions here till now?
No, Abdul.
Okay, if availability zone 1 is, some disaster happened to availability zone 1, then you have to availability zone 2 and availability zone 3. If you are deploy your VMs in availability zone 2 and 3, then you won't face any downtime. Your VMs are available, 24/7, which will guarantee the high availability. Okay, so this is availability zone, which guarantee 99.99 SLA. Okay, 99.99 SLA of your VMs. Okay, it guarantee your VM's availability 99.99 if you use the availability zone. Now availability set. What is availability set? Availability set is a logical grouping of VMs that allow Azure to understand how your application is built to provide the redundancy and availability. So availability set is also used for high availability purpose. We recommend that 2 or more VMs are created within the availability set to provide the high availabilities, high available of your application and database. Availability set guarantee 99.95 means 995%, SLA. If you deploy your VMs in availability set, then your VM's availability is 99.95. Okay, in availability zone, you are getting 99.99. Okay, high availability SLA. There is a no cost for availability set itself. You only pay for each VM's instance that you create. So you can have at least availability set. You have to deploy 2 VMs in the availability set. Okay, for example, ASCS and the ERS are the single point of failure, and then database is also single point of failure. So you can have the 2 VMs created in availability set, one VM for the ASCS and one for the ERS. Okay, and then you can have the another availability set for your database. Example, HANA database. You can have the primary HANA database. Come again?
What is ERS? ASCS means like where message server and enqueue servers are present. And what is ERS? You are saying ERS. Okay, okay.
Your enqueues table are there, right? Enqueue tables are there.
Right, right.
Those will
Okay,
be replicated to ERS node.
okay.
So your log will not be, disappear, will not lose. Okay. Your log entries should be there if your one of the VMs goes down. Okay. So SM13, what is that? SM12 log entries, right?
Hmm.
So log entries, it maintain the log entries. So your log entries is replicated from enqueue servers to enqueue ERS, enqueue replication servers. Okay, it has the copy. So if your ASS is down, in ASS we have the enqueue servers. Enqueue servers contain all your log entries. If your ASS is down, then enqueue server is down. Then your the log entry will gone. If you configure the ERS, then your ERS having the log entries. Once your ASS is up, then it establish the connections with your ERS, and then whatever the log entries are there in the ERS, so you will see those in SM12. So your log entry will not deleted in ASS and then the ERS concept at high availability. Fine. So you can have two availability set, one for ASS and the ERS, and one availability set for your database, primary database, and then secondary database. You create two VMs in availability set, one availability set, one EM for ASCS and another for ERS, and then second availability set for your database, you create two VMs. Okay, within the availability set, one VM for HANA database primary, another VMs for HANA database secondary, and then you can configure the HANA system replications, so which will guarantee the 100%, which will guarantee 99.95% of SLA for your VMs within the availability set. Each virtual machine in your availability set is assigned to update domain and fault domain. Okay, so what is update domain and fault domain? We'll see in more details. By underlaying Azure platform, each availability set can be configured with up to 3 fault domains and 20 update domains. 3 fault domains means you can have the 3 rack and then 20 the VMs. Update domains indicate groups of virtual machine underlying physical hardware that can be rebooted at the same time. So update domain, it represents the rack in the data center. Update domains, fault domains, sorry. So here update domains indicate the groups of virtual machines. Okay, some update domains, fault domains, update domains and the fault. Just a minute. Fault domains. Sorry, fault domains represent your something. Some different thing is mentioned. So update domains represent the racks. So update domains represent the your VMs. It is not representing your racks. Okay, so let me correct it. Here is the fault domains. Fault domains. And this is update domain. So each virtual machine in your availability set is assigned to update domains and then fault domains. Okay, so update domains indicate the groups of virtual machine. Okay, so fault domains, what is the fault domains? The fault domains represent the racks within the in the data centers. Update domains, it represent the VMs. Okay, in the update domains. The fault domains define the group of virtual machine that are shared, common power stored and the network switch. So you have the rack. So in the rack, you have the power supply, network switch, okay, routers, switch, etc., etc. Placing your virtual machine into the availability set doesn't protect your application from operating systems or application specific failure. It doesn't limit the impact of the potential physical hardware failures, network outage, or power interruptions. So basically, the availability set doesn't protect your applications, okay, or your operating system or your database. Okay, it protect your VMs. It protect your VMs, so it will make sure that your VMs are available 99.5 95%. On the VM, you have to configure the your HA, okay, pacemaker clusters to make sure that your applications and then database should be in the high availability. If your VMs is available, then your services also available. Okay. So if you see that if you want to deploy two VMs in availability set we call AS, then you have to select two fault domains and two update domains. So when the Azure team they configure the availability set, in availability set we have minimum two VMs. Okay, when they deploy the two VMs, they have to select two fault domains and two update domains. Okay, so fault domains represent the racks, update domains represent the VMs. Okay, like this. So which will guarantee, availability of your VMs 99.95. If you see availability set here, so we have the region. Okay, so if your region is not supporting the availability zone, then might be that it has the availability set. all the region has the availability set. Not all the region have the availability zone, but all the region have the availability set. Within the availability set, you can have your computers. You can cluster your, virtual machine, means not virtual machine, your services. Okay, so each, virtual machine representing the fault domains. Okay, and having their own disk within the fault domain 0. So virtual machine of the fault domain 0 have their disk within the fault domain 0. So each fault domain have each VMs in the fault domain have their own, disk storage. Okay, like this, and you can deploy your, services in this VMs like this. If you see here, you have the database. Okay, you have the fault domains, another fault domains, which is nothing but a rack. And here we have the VMs, VMs, VM, VMs, which is representing the update domains. Okay, fault domains, rack, update domain, VM. You created a availability set, two availability set. Okay, one for the web availability set. You have given the web availability set, and then another you have given for SQL database or database availability set, application availability set. You created two VMs. Okay, you selected two fault domains. You selected two update domains. Okay, you created two VMs. One VMs here, another VMs here. Now you install AACS here and then ERS here, and then set up the clusters on top of this. Okay, if this virtual machine goes down, then the cluster will move the services from this virtual machine to the another virtual machine, and which will guarantee your uptime of your services. Okay, similarly for the HANA database, sorry, for database, availability set, you have deployed the HANA database, primary database, and then HANA database, secondary database. You configure the HANA system replication HSR. Data is replicating from one VM to another VM between the fault domains. And then on top of that, you have configured the pacemaker clusters. Okay, if your primary, this is the primary, for example, and this is the secondary. If your primary database goes down, then pacemaker cluster will be notified, and then pacemaker clusters will bring up the secondary database as a primary, and then your application is connected to automatically to your newly primary database. So this is guarantee and a high availability, but here if you see it guarantee 95.99.95 SLA. If customer need SLA for, if customer has the requirement for the SLA 99.95, then you go with the availability set configurations. If customer want 99.99 SLA, then we have to use the availability zone. Okay, we'll stop here. Okay, any questions?
No, sir.
Abdul, do we have screenshots of Azure portal with just an example?
हाँ है मेरे पास,
क्या वो थोड़ा और समझ आएगा?
समझ में आएगा वो है, स्क्रीनशॉट नहीं मेरे पास, ये है, मैं तुम लोगों को शेयर कर दूंगा, वीडियोस है मेरे पास।
अच्छा,
तो हाँ वीडियोस है मेरे पास, जैसा फॉर एग्जांपल अभी एक मैं प्ले करके दिखाता हूँ। व्यूज, अरे यार व्यूज, तो इफ यू सी हियर, अभी जैसा मेरे को स्टेप बाय स्टेप डिप्लॉइंग दी, अगर मेरे को अभी अवेलेबिलिटी सेट में मेरे को वीएम बनाना है तो कैसा बनता है, तो इसको मैं प्ले करता हूँ। So if you see here, here this example, it is creating. Okay, if you see here, I will stop. So here creating the virtual machine. Okay, so here a resource group. So resource group is very important. First, they have to create a resource group, and then if you see here, virtual machine name. Okay, virtual machine name. Okay, and now here select the region, in which region you want to create a VMs. Okay, and then here availability zone options, you have to select what you want to use. Let me go back. So in availability options, okay, what you want to use. So we have the availability zone and then availability set. If you have a requirement for the 99.99, then select the availability zone. If you have requirement for the 999.95, then you have to select the availability set. Okay, and then here you have to create, click on the create button. Now here you have to define. So here you have to give the name. Okay, name for availability set. Group availability set का name रहेगा यहाँ पर. What is the name for your availability set? And then how many fault domains and update domains you need. Fault domains represent the rack. Okay, mean maximum you can have the 3 racks, and then update domain maximum you can have the 20 VMs. Okay. Okay, so 3 domains and then 20 fault update domains. So 20 VMs you can create, and you can have the 3 the fault domains. But for the HA, we select 2 VMs. Okay, 2 fault domains, 2 update domains, and then here you select size of your VMs and all that, and then HTTP, HTTPS, whatever it is, and then you networking. Okay, then other configurations. Okay, infra level configurations. Okay, so this part is done by the infra team. We have to suggest them that we need to use the availability set, availability zone like this. The deployment is underway. Now your VMs are created. Now you can have one VMs is created. Okay, we have to create 2 VMs, right? One VM is created. We have to select the same availability set now. Same process we have to follow to create another VM. This is the VM2. This time we don't need to select the fault domain and update domain because we already selected and we have given the availability set. So while creating the another the VMs, you have to just select your availability set AS1. So above AS1 is there. So that is the group. That is the AS availability set. Inside that you have 2 VMs, VM AS, like these 2 VMs. Okay, so in these 2 VMs, you can deploy your ASCS and the ERS or database, whatever it is. Clear this one? So if you see that fault domain 2, update domain 2, virtual machine 2. Okay, and the disk is managed disk. And then here we have the VMs. So if you want to create a 10 VMs, then you have to create 10 VMs. And then while creating the VMs, you have to select the AS, this AS availability set. Okay, I'll show you that this lady is selected this one. If you see that, here it is selected. While creating the second VMs, okay, while creating the second VMs, you have to just select the AS availability set, whatever you have created. So this is we created while, with the first. Here I will show you. So here HA group is there. Then virtual machine is creating in the region, and then selecting the zone, availability options. Okay, availability set, and then create, and then while creating, you have to specify the ability set. Here AS1. Okay, so here AS1. If you see AS1, so in the AS1, we have the 2 fault domains and 2 update domains. So while creating the another VMs, while creating the VMs, another VM, second VMs, you have to select, okay, AS1. Okay, so your second VMs is automatically created in AS1 ability set within these fault domains and then update domains. Clear?
Yeah.
Similar like for availability zone. If you see availability zone, so select availability zone. I'll share this video. Huh? Availability set, then availability zone. You can have 3 availability. You have the 3 availability zone within the region at least. Okay, so if you see that this Asia Pacific doesn't support, Asia Pacific South India region doesn't support availability zone. We don't have availability zone. No availability zones are available for the location you have selected. So not all the regions have the availability zone, but all the regions have availability set. Okay, so yeah, so make sure that if you have the availability zone requirement 99.99, so make sure that whatever the region you are selecting, that should support. Otherwise, you will not have the 99.99. Okay. So here select the region. Okay, and then public IP address किधर गया? Availability zone. So here availability zone, then how many zone you need, 1 or 2? Okay, I need 1 availability zone. I want to deploy VMs in 1 availability zone. Or you want to deploy, yeah. So here the VM 1 will be deployed in availability zone 1. Okay. And then while creating the VM 2, we have to select availability zone 2. Okay, so this is the okay. So if you see the availability zone, zonal services, okay, zone redundant and then zone services. Okay, these two I explained, right? What is the zone redundant services and zone services? Okay, so here this is all fine. It is now creating the VM2. If you see the VM2, it is selected availability set zone 2. Okay, fine. Selecting the VM's type. Okay, password. Okay, fine. That's it. So it's simple. Okay. Clear this one?
Yeah.
हम लोग नहीं create करते हैं. We don't create this all these things. We give our requirement. हमको कैसा चाहिए? How our ACP systems and database will look like. Whether you want to use availability zone, availability set, कितना availability zone use करना है, availability set कर use करना है, वो उनको पता चल जाएगा. 2 VMs आपने बोला, मेरे को 2 VMs का requirement है. Okay, I'm using the availability set. Then they will go with 2 VMs, 2 fault domains, 2 fault update domains.
Okay.
In availability zone, if you have 2 VMs, requirement of 2 VMs, they will put 1 VMs in one of AZ and they will put another VMs in AZ2 like this. Okay, ठीक है? चलो फिर stop here and then we'll meet tomorrow 12. Okay, 12 afternoon. अगर टाइमिंग चेंज हो गया रात को ही मैं बता दूंगा. आगे कुछ चेंजेस होता तो ठीक है.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Sure.
ओके चलो देन बाय.
Bye.
Bye.
बाय.